Now on Radio Glamorgan, something special just for you.
Hello and welcome to the Sporting Roundup, the weekly Radio Glamorgan sports show brought to you by the third year sports journalism students at USW. I'm your host for this week's show. My name is James Dodd. I'm 20 years old and I'm from Barry. I'm joined by my fellow sports journalism students Hayley McCarthy and Matt Slater. On this week's show, we look forward to an exciting weekend of football with the highly anticipated South Wales derby between Cardiff City and Swansea City, as well as looking ahead to Newport's fixture against Leyton Orient and the announcement of Wales's World Cup qualifying group. And in the rugby, we look back on Wales's autumn, as well as looking ahead to this weekend's fixtures for the Welsh regions. But before all of that, it's time for the first song of the show. It's December, so there is only one type of song to play. It's I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day by Wizard.
You're listening to your award-winning station,
Radio Glamorgan.
here for you, all day, every day.
That was I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day by Wizard. Throughout the show, we will be testing you with some quiz questions, so make sure you have your thinking caps on for those. All answers will be coming at the end of today's show. Now it's time for the football roundup with Halen and Matt.
On air, all day, every day. Broadcasting from the largest hospital in Wales. We are Radio Glamorgan.
Thanks, James. My name's Hayden McCarthy. I'm 21 years old from Cardiff, and I'm joined today with Matt Slater.
Hi, I'm Matt. I'm 20 and I'm from Worcestershire.
Now we look ahead to the South Wales derby between Cardiff City and Swansea City on the weekend. Matt, what do you think about this game?
I think it's going to be a weird one. It's usually a feisty fixture and it'll be the first derby without fans. Cardiff, from the back of brilliant form, having won their last four. The players are playing for Neil Harris. He was under pressure of losing his job. He came out and admitted that, and now they've won every game. They've scored 10 and only conceded 1. So Cardiff will be going into this high hopes and believing they can do the business. But Swansea, they're around the top of the table. They've got a lethal attack this season. Andre Ayew has been one of the best players in the league. But the only worrying thing for them is they don't pick up the wins where they should do. They drew against Bournemouth where they should have won. And that's just one time out of many this season. The only major injury concern for the home side will be Harry Wilson. He's been in form for them recently. He's been one of their better players along with Kiefer Moore. But he looks doubtful, which will be worrying for Cardiff. Swansea could be without Mike van der Horn. Ben Cabango and Ben Wilmot are set to return as a centre-back partnership, however. So that's promising for Swansea. Personally, I think it's going to be a draw. I think without the fans, it's usually, like I said, it's usually a feisty fixture and it'll be a weird South Walian derby. I think both teams could play conservatively and I think a 1-1 draw.
Cardiff are in great form, like you just mentioned, but it's starting to look like that Neil Harris has found his preferred 11 with youngster Mark Harris coming into the team to partner Kiefer Moore. What's your opinions on the young boy?
I think he's done really well since he's came in. He's the perfect partner for Kiefer Moore. He does the groundwork, he does the running. But he's a good finisher as well, shown with his goal against Luton. I think it's good that he's in a team surrounded by the likes of Kiefer Moore and Harry Wilson, because obviously he's Welsh and it's a good foundation for him to get into the Welsh setup. I think he's done well this season and I think he's only going to go and build upon that.
Do you think his form deserves a call-up from Ryan Giggs' team?
Yeah, definitely. I think he's playing to a good standard already. He's only 21, so Wales have a young squad, and why not bring him in? He's comfortable with Kiefer Moore, Harry Wilson, the Welsh lads in the Cardiff team. And he's a second striker, so it offers Wales, who play with just Kiefer up top usually, it offers them a bit of a plan B if it's not usually working.
Newport remain top of League 2, 4 points clear of Cheltenham as they play Leyton Orient after defeating the side a few weeks back 2-1 in the FA Cup. Matt, what do you see looking onto this game?
Yeah, Newport have been flying this season. They're still top of the table and they haven't showed signs of stopping. They beat Leyton Orient in the cup, and even though they're away this time around, I think they'll still do the business. The only worrying side, Newport have lacked a little bit of clinical finishing in the final thirds. They're putting the balls into the box and it's usually getting cleared away. But the form that Scott Twines came in, he's scoring from free kicks, he's scoring from long range. Padre Gamon's scoring. I think they won't face any hurdles and I think they'll do the business.
Moving on to Wales now, who have been joining Group E alongside Belgium, the Czech Republic, Estonia and Belarus in the World Cup qualifying group for the 2020 World Cup in Qatar. Matt, what are your opinions on this group?
I think it's a promising group for Wales. Obviously, the fixture they'll be looking ahead to is against Belgium. They had a famous triumph over them a couple of years ago under Coleman. That'll be fresh in the minds of the fans and the players, and they'll be wanting to replicate that. Apart from Belgium, I don't think there'll be too much to offer Wales. Czech Republic are a solid side, but I think the likes of Bale, Ramsey, if they're fit, Joe Allen, I think they'll have too much quality, and I think they'll go ahead second. If they beat Belgium, I think they could go through top in the group.
Giggs has been known to use young players often in his Wales squads, and they've been performing well in the Nations League as we topped our group. But difficult opposition when it comes to World Cup qualifiers, like you said, Belgium, Czech Republic. How do you see the young players doing in this time?
Yeah, I think they'll be fine. You've got the likes of Ben Cabango, who's starting centre-back for Swansea. He's just 20. Ethan Ampadu's also 20, and he's got vast experience both in the Premier League and in the Bundesliga. So I think it's easy to forget that these players are established players at such a young age, and I think they'll be fine. They'll go into the game against Belgium, and they'll just be looking to replicate what they did in 2016. I don't think there'll be any worries there, and I think they'll thrive under the pressure.
So do you think Wales are a sure thing to qualify this group?
Yeah, I do. I don't think Belarus or Estonia will provide too many challenges for Wales. The game will be against Belgium, and I think they could nick a win there if they're on top form. They'll be the underdogs, but I don't see any reason why not. So I think they could go through as top, but I think they'll definitely go through, yeah.
Broadcasting from the John Wills Studio at the University Hospital of Wales in Cardiff, we are Radio Glamorgan.
Now, on to the first quiz question. Don't worry if you miss any questions, they will all be repeated at the end before the answers. Here is the first question. Cardiff played Swansea this weekend, but what was the result in the last meeting between the two sides? While you think of your answer, it's time for the second song of the show. It's All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey.
You're listening to Radio Glamorgan.
That was All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey. Hope you all enjoyed that. Now it's time for the next sporting roundup with Matt and myself talking about the rugby.
On air, all day, every day. Broadcasting from the largest hospital in Wales. We are Radio Glamorgan.
Thanks, James. So Wales managed a 38-18 victory over Italy last Saturday to claim fifth place in the Autumn Nations Cup. This was only Wayne Pivatt's third win in 2020 and his second against the Italians. So James, what did you think of Wales's win over Italy?
Yeah, I think overall it was just a relief. I think to get the win, I think after an hour or so they were 18-17 down after scoring two relatively early tries. So I think from that point of view, to be in a good position and then against a team like Italy to sort of just throw away the lead, it is quite worrying. But I thought, the ending, the likes of Gareth Davis, Kieran Hardy's try at the start as well, really showed promise in attack, especially as well Justin Tipuric's try at the end. Callum Sheedy's excellent pass for Faletau, who could have easily scored himself and fed it to Tipuric. So I thought, Tips and Faletau, the pairing throughout the whole 80 minutes was a really big plus.
And how would you rate Wales's autumn as a whole?
I think overall it was just pretty disappointing, wasn't it? I think, okay, they beat Italy, they beat Georgia, teams that Wales will always be expected to win. And the Georgia performance wasn't necessarily particularly great. Yeah, the weather wasn't great, but 18-0, it was a bit of a struggle, if I'm honest. And then in the Six Nations, the last round, they lost to Scotland at home for the first time in 18 years, beaten comfortably by England, Ireland, and France as well. So yeah, it was pretty frustrating. I think the attack, apart from that Italy game last week, wasn't really firing on all cylinders. I think the top team's defence was easily superior over Wales' attack, and they just don't. I think it was similar when Gatland was in charge. Just a struggle when Wales' attack isn't going well. They don't have a kind of a plan B. They just try and do the same thing. In terms of their defence as well, it's nowhere near with the same intensity as when Sean Edwards was in the setter. And obviously the set piece was incredibly disappointing. The scrum was pretty average, but the line-out was, very, very dire at times.
The European rugby season starts this weekend with all 4 Welsh regions competing in round 1. In the Champions Cup, the Dragons host London Wasps, while the Scarlets travel to Bath, both on Saturday. How do you think the Dragons and Scarlets will do in a top competition, James?
Yeah, well, firstly, for the Dragons, to be in the Champions Cup for the first time in around 10 years, I think is a fantastic achievement for all involved. And I'd like to think that this competition will just kind of be a nice break from the league for them. And they can just kind of play with nothing to lose. They're not expected to get to knockout stages. They're not expected to win it. They've got, Wasps and Bordeaux Begler as their 2 opponents who they'll play home and away. And, on paper and historically, these are 2 teams that are better than the Dragons. But like I said, they've got nothing to lose. And if they can sneak a couple of wins, even if they don't qualify for the last 8, they can definitely take confidence from it and, moving into the league. And you look at, as well, they have a lot less international players on Wales duty. So the likes of Richard Hibbard, Rodney Williams, Sam Davis, they've got these experience, and obviously the youth of, Ashton Hewitt as well. They've got players that stick around every week. So that'll be a huge bonus. As for the Scarlets, they've got a number of international players not returning due to injury. The likes of Liam Williams and James Davis, Reece Patchell. They do have Johnny McNicholas available, however, and they have a couple of years ago they reached the semi-finals and unfortunately lost to Leinster at the Aviva Stadium. So they know what it takes to win big games. They've played Toulon quite a few times in the Challenge Cup and Champions Cup over the last few years. So those will certainly be 2 interesting games.
In the Challenge Cup, the Blues travel up north to Newcastle on Friday night, and just 24 hours later, the Ospreys host Castres in Swansea. What are your thoughts on their chances?
Yeah, well, the Blues won the Challenge Cup in 2018 after beating Gloucester in Bilbao, which, being 20 points to 6 down at half-time is a fantastic achievement. They have 2 pretty good opponents for Challenge Cup standards, Newcastle Falcons and Stade Francais. So, those won't be, easy games, especially, travelling up north and travelling to Paris. But I think a couple of years ago showed that they can win these tight games. I expect them to get to the last 16 in the Challenge Cup. It is a different format to the Champions Cup. And then, from then on, these are one-off games that you can win. They've got, a number of players returning from Wales duty, like Shane Lewis-Hughes, Jim Botham, Sam Davis, Rhys Carey on the bench. So they've certainly, packed their team with a mixture of youth and experience. So they'll go to Newcastle with confidence. And in terms of the Ospreys, Castres and Worcester are their 2 opponents for their 4 pool games. It's been a pretty mixed bag. They managed to beat Benetton at home in their last game, 22-10 down with 10 minutes to go. So they'll be pretty happy with that. They should have George North playing for them this weekend. Alan Jones, Justin Tipperick, Sam Parry could be returning. So, look, they'll expect with those players to get to the last 16. And who knows, them and the Blues could meet each other.
You're listening to your award-winning station,
Radio Glamorgan.
here for you all day, every day.
Time for the second quiz question now. Things haven't been going too well for Wales rugby as of late, but who was the player of the tournament when they won the Six Nations Grand Slam in 2019? While you think of that, we have another song. It's Merry Christmas, everyone, by Wales' very own Shakin' Stevens.
On air, all day, every day. Broadcasting from the largest hospital in Wales. We are Radio Glamorgan.
That was Merry Christmas, everyone, by Shakin' Stevens. Time for the final quiz question now. Wales were drawn against Belgium in the World Cup qualifying group, but who scored the third goal in Wales' 3-1 win in Euro 2016?
Radio Glamorgan.
Here are all the 3 quiz questions with answers. What was the score in the last South Wales derby between Cardiff and Swansea? It was, in fact, a goalless 0-0 draw. The second question was, who was the player of the tournament when Wales won the Grand Slam in 2019? It was, in fact, the record-breaking Alan Wynne-Jones. And now finally, who scored the third goal in Wales' historic 3-1 win against Belgium in Euro 2016? It was, in fact, Sam Vokes.
You're listening to Radio Glamorgan.
Now, unfortunately, that's all we have time for. I've been your host, James Dodd. Thank you for listening. We hope you all enjoyed the sporting roundup this week by Radio Glamorgan. Thank you and goodbye.
Broadcasting from the John Wills Studio at the University Hospital of Wales in Cardiff. We are Radio Glamorgan.